Hey everybody, it's time to pick up where I left off on the last video for Physical Graffiti, and that was on In the Light. So opening up side 3, we have In the Light, which is one of the epics of the album. I would say really there's 4 epic songs on Physical Graffiti. You've got In My Time of Dying, that certainly qualifies as an epic in my opinion. Kashmir, of course, 10 Years Gone, and In the Light. And there are some things that particularly 10 Years Gone and In the Light I think share, and that is the alternating between the drumless parts, let's say, and when the full rhythm section comes in. There is a kinship between these tunes, and also Kashmir in the sense of the dramatic sense and the scope of these songs compositionally. Originally, In the Light had a different introduction which was recorded, which featured John Paul Jones playing, I think he's playing on the clavinet, but it almost sounds like a harpsichord type sound, but I believe it's the clavinet. And he's playing this little arpeggiated figure, and Robert had some different lyrics, a different melody line. And if you've never heard that alternate take, check it out. It was on the bonus disc of material on the Physical Graffiti reissue from a few years back. And while I really like that version, I still think that the one that made it to the album is the right choice. It's just, you know, it has such a great atmosphere. It really perfectly exemplifies the light and shade ethos, I guess, of Zeppelin. And in this case, it's kind of like shade and light, because the introduction is a minor key drone, and it sets this, it's very like Middle Eastern influenced with the scales and the way Robert is singing. And that to me is more like the representation, I guess, of the darkness, and the song is about, you know, finding the light. So when the band comes in, it's still in that minor key, but there's a transition in the verses where it goes to major key, and that's when you have that beautiful line that ascends, bum, 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 and then often Bonzo plays a fill in that next bar. So there's a similarity there to me with Kashmir, in especially at the end of the song, as the song goes out and you have this ascending line, bum 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 bum, and then Bonzo plays a fill. So you've got like basically like a 2-bar phrase. So the first bar is groove, and the second bar is still groove, but it features some sort of fill. So I'm going to demonstrate this with some of the fills that he plays from the record. But I think that, you know, it's interesting to note that similarity. You know, Zeppelin were, I just think that John Paul Jones and Jimmy's sense of composition, and then Bonzo's sense of how to shape an arrangement, you know, for all the Zeppelin haters out there, if they would just really listen to the songs that Zeppelin wrote, these fairly epic compositions, especially songs like Achilles' Last Stand, Carouselambra, and all those claims of them being unoriginal and just borrowing from, you know, or stealing from other bands and appropriating their music, plagiarizing and all of that. You know, there's no way anyone with a good musical sensibility could hear a song like In My Time of Dying, or Kashmir, or In the Light, or 10 Years Gone. I mean, so many examples where the compositional strength and originality is so profound. I just don't get it. I don't know what people are hearing. You know, they were not a cover band by any stretch of the imagination. And I know most of you are, you know, fans of this channel and follow me. That's obvious. That goes without saying. But for, you know, the haters out there, if you could just like open up your mind and your ears and really listen to and pay attention to the structure of these compositions and the brilliance, you know, in all ways. I mean, not just rhythmically, of course, from Bonzo, but the compositional structure, harmonically, the melodies, it's just magnificent music. And this song is really a great example of that kind of style and originality. This song is very, very distinctively Led Zeppelin. It doesn't sound like anybody else to me. So anyway, enough gabbing about that. I'm going to just play some examples. So the song, after the drone part, there's a count in, and the way the rhythm lays, for those of you who aren't sure, it starts on beat 1. So if you look at it as a long form, because it's a very slow tempo. So that's like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1E, 2E, 3E, 4E. Those are the rhythms. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's the basic beat for those verses. He really doesn't change that up much at all. He's playing to the riff once again, which he usually does, and the riff is dun 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 ba ba da bo da bo do ba ba. So he's playing the significant or key accents of that rhythm. And again, as always, with ghosting on the snare drum. So the next section kind of references that rhythm that the song starts with when the drums come in. So that's this. So he throws in that cool little kind of rough into the crash. And there are a couple ways you can do that. Sometimes I do it as a 2-stroke with a left hand accent into the crash, which is like this. Okay, so that's right, right, left, crash, but the left is accented. And when you do it fast, it sounds like this. Or you could play single strokes starting with the left hand, so you play 3 strokes before the crash, like this. So in context, it would be. So they're kind of crammed into that little short space of 30-second notes, I guess. But without overanalyzing it too much, it's basically just a quick rough with an accent before the crash. Again, like this. Then he plays a fill leading into the major key section, in the light, that part. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. and then back to the drone section. So as the song goes out, it's basically the same pattern, but the major key section goes on for a while, and he plays those 2-bar phrases which alternate between the groove and some fills. And let me see if I can remember those. So the setup into that section the next time goes like this. So those are basically the fills that he plays going out. I don't know if I played them all in the right sequence, but that's the general idea. Again, you know, there's a lot of ghosting in that slow tempo, so that's really important for the feel of the, you know, capturing the right feel if you want to play it with the right feel. So always remember to keep that ghosting happening. So like, for example, this beat, you know. Okay, so that is actually a good thing to practice to get your slow groove together, because that is not as easy as it may seem. It's a simple beat, but to play that beat with a good feel and keep the time locked in but not stiff, not sounding metronomic, that is challenging. So let's move on to the next song, shall we? What are the little fish saying? Okay, so the next tune, at least with drums, is Down by the Seaside. And I think this is a rather odd tune for Zeppelin. I really like this tune, but it's very different. And, you know, they had so much variety of influences that it stands to reason that they would do something like this, but especially maybe for like the third album. This was recorded during the sessions for the fourth album, and I think it was recorded at Headley Grange. I'm not sure, but I know it was recorded in 1971. I actually have some notes here. Let me see. February of 1971 at Island. So that makes more sense to me that it was at Island, because the drums have a pretty different sound, and you know, I dare say they almost sound like the Thermogloss kit to me, although, you know, who knows without having seen pictures, as I always say. If there's no documentation, you can't rule any possibility out. But the drums sound a bit lower tuned. They just sound more like the Thermos to me, and particularly it sounds like something off of the third album more than something from Headley Grange, like Rock and Roll or Stairway or well, Stairway was recorded at Island too, I believe. But at any rate, this song has an interesting shuffle beat. It's got kind of a lazy country-esque shuffle. And, of course, Jimmy's guitar playing. I guess I don't know if that's a pedal steel or a lap steel that he's playing on it. But it has a country vibe, laid back, and Bonzo plays this beautifully laid back beat on it. I'll just start playing the beat. There's really not a whole lot to the song. He plays a couple nice little fills, but there is a middle section where it rocks a little harder, an interlude, and it's an interlude that's in a different tempo as well, which is an interesting compositional, choice and idea, which they would do from time to time. But let's check out the first part of this beat. Okay, so that's the basic nuts and bolts of that groove. It's a very straightforward shuffle, not a whole lot of fills. And he plays those little fills, and the people turned away. That part is basically just very simple, or this one. Just triplets going around the kit. And then for that interlude, which is at a faster tempo, he breaks into this cool kind of soul type groove. I'll just go ahead and play that. Okay, so next up, 10 Years Gone, which is another one of the big epics on the album. I'm going to break this one down in parts because it's quite a long song and there's a lot going on. So first of all, when Bonzo enters, we've got another one of these interesting Zeppelin-esque kind of ways of points of entry. So he plays with the riff on the floor toms, and the first cymbal crash is actually on the and of one. So that's da-da-da-da-da-da-ba-bum. So that cymbal crash is on the and of one. So within that beat, there's a subtle bit of ghosting that's going on. It's a pretty simple beat, but to get it right, you got to get that ghosting in there. Okay, and then moving along, we've got the section where there's the first guitar solo. Ding 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 and down ding, dun. Okay, so I just ended up playing through that whole section. There are a couple fills in there that I think are pretty obvious what he's doing. Let's see. Let's roll back just a little bit. So in that section where the guitar is playing, you can hear him playing 16th notes on the ride, which I think is a really nice and tasty way of playing that particular section and makes it have a different texture than the other parts of the song. So this is one of those things that if you are familiar with Bonham's way of slightly varying his drumming to fit a particular section, you'll immediately recognize that it's a classic Bonham-esque way of thinking in a more compositional or structural way. And I think he did this very naturally. I think it came very innately to him. I don't think that he was self-consciously saying, okay, in this section I'm going to go on the ride and I'm going to go. But it's likely that throughout the course of the rehearsals, things like this just start to happen, and out of the improvisation comes this compositional, aspect to it. So again, like that section is really, really pretty drumming. I don't know how else to put it, but like Bonzo playing pretty, right? Like. I just think that's really great. And then back to the. And those kind of fills, I think sometimes I hear a little bit of bass drum under the tom-tom, like. And that little bit of ghosting, it's real subtle. It's not really like. Sometimes you hear it more than other times, but it's very much a feel thing. So okay, let's go to that last section now, where you have more fills as the song goes out. Okay, so next up is a really cool groove that is found on Night Flight. Night Flight was recorded at Headley Grange, just like a lot of stuff that's on Physical Graffiti. For example, the last song we just looked at, 10 Years Gone, that was recorded at Headley Grange, but that was recorded in the winter of '74 for the new album at the time. And Night Flight was recorded in '71 during recording for the fourth album. So it's got a bit of a different sound to it in terms of Bonzo's drums. I think of this tune kind of like a soul tune. It almost sounds like something you would hear on a Stax record or, Atlantic Records from the late '60s with the B3 organ, and I think the guitar is going through a Leslie speaker, and it has this feel, especially with the way Plant is singing it, of a soul type tune. Bonzo plays a really cool beat that is 16ths on the hi-hat, double hand, and I'm gonna just break this beat down. It's a little tricky to do because of the bass drum work. So here's the opening. Okay, so hopefully that's pretty clear from the top cam there, what I did. The fill that he plays to lead into the verse is this: 1, 2, 3, 4. So the accents are da da dum da 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 dum. But in between that, likely that was the sticking. I think it sounds to me like there's ghosting in between those notes. So it's not just. This is it. Okay, so again, that beat. Okay, now on this one, that fill, it's always been interesting to me that the difference between the tom and the floor tom is very slight in terms of the tuning. And I don't know if Bonzo changed his tuning from, song to song. I kind of doubt that. But there are times where the drums sound so differently tuned from another song. And this is one of those cases. Jimmy mentions that Bonzo got a new kit delivered to Headley Grange, and that's when they set it up for When the Levee Breaks, and also that would have been for Misty Mountain Hop. You can hear that the drums are tuned more tightly on those songs. And this song also has that slightly tighter tom sound. It's hard to distinguish for me the difference between the tom and the floor tom when he plays those fills. Like when he plays, it almost sounds like, although I don't think that's what it is, because I can hear a little bit of a tonal difference. But it's the case with this particular fill right here. It kind of sounds like that, but I don't think that's what he did. I think his floor tom was just tuned up tighter, and it's closer in relation to the tom. Okay, and so now we go to the next part, which is... Well, so okay, so that part right there, he goes up onto the bell of the cymbal, plays kind of a cool little, almost like a bongo beat. Think it's time. And then a really cool fill here. I'm going to do it slower to start, and then I'll play it at tempo. It's really not that complicated, but I do believe it is a left-hand lead fill in this case, which, as often is the case with Bonzo, the left-hand lead is leading to the 1, though. So it's leading to the downbeat. So that's... and 1. So here it is at tempo. Okay, so that's basically the tune. You've got the ending, which has those little stop starts. Okay, so we come to Wanton Song, which is everyone's favorite. Everyone loves this song. One of the most iconic drum beats of Bonzo's from Physical Graffiti. The basic pattern is you've got this octave riff, kind of like Immigrant Song in a way. This is what I think he's doing. And it varies. Okay, so let's just stop there and take a look at that beat. So we have a fairly simple beat, but with a lot of ghosting and bass drum accents in a bit of an odd place. Right? Or all of which I hear him doing at different times throughout the song. Sometimes I hear, and then sometimes I hear this variation. And then sometimes you can hear the double stroke. So by all means, play them all. I think he did. The important thing in this beat is to have that ghosting correct. And there's a double stroke that interacts with the bass drum double stroke, and sometimes it sounds like he's playing 3 or 4 notes in a row. Boom, boom, boom. Dom. I think I remember Bill Burr did a a thing where he was talking about this and how frustrating it was to try to play that 3-note sequence in tempo. And I really don't think he was doing it. I don't think it was that he was incapable of doing it. It is very hard to do that. Let's see. You know, it can be done. I just don't hear it that emphatically. And if he did do it, maybe he did it like a couple times, but it's really, really hard to hear, you know, especially in the apps. I think on the alternate mix, you can hear the drums a little bit, I don't know, better, but you can hear them differently. But that's what I hear. So I don't want to dwell on this aspect of it too long. When he plays the accents with the chords, da da, those chords, he plays like he does in Heartbreaker and other times. There's ghosting between the crashes. Got that? So that's. So he catches those accents, catches the crashes with that little bit of ghosting in between. All this adds to a really funky feel. This song is really heavily rooted in funk. I mean, it's almost like jazz funk. It's almost got like, you know, I know he was a fan of Alphonse Mouzon later and Bernard Purdie and, you know, some of those kind of drummers who really had that left-hand ghosting thing happening. Lenny White. I don't know if he was a fan of Lenny White. I know Lenny White is a fan of his. I've heard this before, and Lenny White is just such an amazing, brilliant drummer, iconic drummer, associated with so many greats like Miles Davis and Chick Corea, Return to Forever. And Lenny's a fan of Bonzo's, specifically in My Time of Dying. He's quoted as talking about how he was flattered to hear that Bonzo actually supposedly, you know, heard him and liked his drumming. So anyway, it makes me think of him a bit on this because of this very funky kind of attitude in the beat. So I'm going to play the beat just a little bit. This is the kind of attitude I think should be in the beat. How could I forget that one? So that's just simply. And if you want to be able to do that
with control and confidence in the moment, because the way he does it, it's just a burst. You know, it's not something that he does for a long time, but it's a good thing to practice for a long time, which is this. You hear the similarity there to Whole Lot of Love on The Song Remains the Same, the fast funk out section with the theremin. This. Also, big similarity with Achilles' Last Stand, and with how he would often play the intro to The Song Remains the Same, especially 1977. Like June 21st, the legendary June 21st, 1977 show called Listen to This Eddie is the name of the bootleg. But he comes out the gate with that. Okay, that's a subject for another time. Actually, I've already covered that. But that's the idea. So that's what's happening in that section. Okay, now the next section that we should take a look at is the guitar solo through the Leslie amp. That part. He gets into some real heavy stuff there, and the hi-hats are a little more splashy, so that's... So right there, that phrase, he pulls back just ever so slightly to give it tension and then release the spring, you know? That's just one of the greatest moments to me on the studio recordings, you know. That stutter fill. I mean, it's just so, that's so brilliant. Let's slow it down a little bit so you can hear where it lays. I mean, it's pretty clear, but so that's... it has this great little like pause, and then it's like the pause before a big explosion. You know, in a movie how they do that, where there's this moment where just before detonation, it's like, and then that's how that feels to me. It's just brilliant. So the end of the song is pretty much this. Okay, so technically the next song is Boogie with Stu, which doesn't have much to it as far as drums go. I still can't understand how they recorded the hand claps. I think the guys were standing in the hallway or something. Where was this recorded? It was recorded during the 4th album sessions at Headley Grange. So I think the hand claps have obviously some sort of delay on them, but they really the way it works out in the final mix is pretty wacky sounding. And I'm assuming that the bass drum, that's Bonzo playing the bass drum. Anyway, that's a weird one. Black Country Woman. Okay, Black Country Woman. This is another one of my favorites, just because of the sheer power and tone of his drums on this track. I think this might have been recorded at the same time as Jamaica. It was recorded at Stargroves in '72 for the Houses of the Holy sessions, and the drums have that big fat sound to me. So you've got the bass drum just slamming on all fours for most of those early verses. One of my favorites. He changes up the beat a little bit during the whatever that little trippy section is. And then, of course, one of my other all-time favorite moments, the big cymbal crash on beat 2. Hey, hey, mama. That's like in Custard Pie when he does the big, That's one of those moments that's just quintessential Bonham taste and drama. So and that ain't all. Okay, so we come to the last song on the album, which is Sick Again, and another one of the most interesting and inventive Bonham drum parts in the repertoire of their songs. I mean, this song has such a great beat that aligns with the riff of the song again. But it's unusual in that he separates between the hi-hat and moves up to the ride cymbal on the bell of the ride cymbal and plays this really interesting subdivided rhythm. So let's take a look at that beat. Okay, so the song opens with these chords. Okay, what's that? All right, so simple enough for the first bar. So there he moves to the bell. So that's 1 on the downbeat. So that's the downbeat isn't really stated very much. Ba-dum bum 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 ba 1. Ba-dum bum 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 ba 1. Actually, it's a 5/4 bar there. So you've got dun 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's on the and of 5. So you got an anticipation thing going on, which can be a little disorienting because you're not hearing the beat come down. You're not hearing the chord and the crash come down on 1. So that's 5 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Dum bum 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 dun dun dun. That's on the and of the beat. 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 and. Okay, so let me break down what he actually does. So far, are you with me on that? That's. He gets back up to the bell of the cymbal after that hi-hat splash, so he does it with his right hand. He does not do it with his, he does not do it with his left hand. So you've got. One way you can practice this is to just do it on the bell without the hi-hat at first and just get this rhythm in your system. So that's 3, 4, 1. And that bell alone is on beat 1. There's no bass drum or snare drum hit with it. So that's. And then the extra beat when you go out. Okay, so here it is at tempo. Okay, so I have to stop there so we can take a look at that big one. So when he plays those eighth notes, crashing the cymbal, at first he plays a little triplet roll into the next section. So those are simply triplets, but they're going by fast, and the downbeat is crashes. When he plays this, he almost pushes it a little bit. It's kind of elastic. So when he plays the big triplet crashes, triplets on the snare with the crashes, they kind of push ahead a little bit, like this. And then he just gets right back into that fat pocket, you know. Okay, so I'm kind of going on ahead. Let's take a look at some of those things. So again, the triplet crashes are... And, you know, it really doesn't matter where you do them on the right side. You could do them between the ride and the 18 or the left crash, which is a little easier than getting to this crash. But you can do both. Okay, so that's all that is. You just got to get it up to speed. And then the next, he plays. There's a fill that he plays. It almost sounds a little bit like maybe a flub, but you know, who cares? Everybody's human. We all make mistakes, and it sounds really cool the way it comes out though, where he plays. You know the part I mean? It was like, "Baby, I'm the one you want. I'm the one you need." So there's. So the way I play that is, so that's, one, two, three, boom. So it ends with a double stroke in the left hand. Otherwise, it's all singles. At least that's what I think it is. It might be, there might be two tom hits in there. It's a little hard to hear. Okay, just a big roundhouse of triplets, but you keep those bass drum eighth notes going. And then as the song goes out, the very ending has a slight variation on this beat. He stops doing the hi-hat bark, and he just keeps it up, and then eventually he starts doing a little thing on the snare drum. So this is what he does. So that's what I think he's doing. He's going. Kind of like the gallows pole beat, only he's splitting it up between the snare and the ride cymbal. Gallows pole is. So that's it for Sick Again, and that concludes the analysis and demo of Physical Graffiti in its entirety. What a masterpiece, double LP. So thanks so much for watching and supporting the channel. It's always a pleasure to make these videos and dig deeper into Bonham's extraordinary playing on the studio recordings. I've got some videos coming up soon. I'm going to be making a series of videos at a house that I've rented, and I'm going to be using a special kit that I'm borrowing from someone who was very kind enough to offer to lend me the kit. That's going to be a surprise. You'll all see that probably in the next week. I'm going to be heading out on Sunday and getting set up and doing about 4 days of recording in my own little sort of personal Headley Grange type situation. So I'm going to make some videos for the People's Front of Zeppelin as well. Go PFOZ. This is one of the new merch items that's available only on the website. So check out the website. Actually, it's really nicely done. Pete, the bass player from the band, set it all up, and I think it's great. It looks great, and there's a lot of really nice resources on there if you're interested in subscribing. I believe it's $100 for a year, or $10 a month. You could pay by the month, or you can buy a yearly subscription, and that gets you access to some special tutorials, play-alongs, music -1 type play-alongs where you can play along minus the guitar track or minus the drum track or bass track, whatever. And there's also instrument cams where you get an exclusive view of that of any particular instrument that you're interested in, which of course our videos are always, you know, highly edited and switching between different instruments. So the instrument cams are kind of fun to watch. And there's lots of merch on there. There's, you know, different shirts, there's mugs, there's hats, there's even Professor Obstweedle pillow. So go check it out. It's a fun site. Pete's got a really great sense of humor, and he kind of infused the website with it. So it's cool, and it also has some Python-esque kind of, you know, smart-ass humor in there. So that's it for now. It's a snowy day. The snow is snowing and the wind is blowing upstairs, and I've got to pack this up now and get my snowblower fired up and get to work. We got about a foot of snow here today, so hope everyone's staying warm, staying safe and healthy out there in YouTube land. And thank you so much once again to all the subscribers and people who have contributed to me through the PayPal link, which is found in the description of all my videos. I really appreciate the contributions. They've enabled me to upgrade. I got a couple close mics for the floor toms now, and I've got a new interface here, nice Focusrite interface. I got a couple new biodynamic overheads, the M160s. So that's mainly thanks to the supporters who have generously donated to the channel. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And that's it for now. So take care, and I'll see you real soon. Peace.